Welcome to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast that prepares you for one of life's toughest yet inevitable moments, stepping in when your parents need you most. Hosted by Chris Spade, a senior real estate specialist with Keller Williams Realty. We'll dive deep into more than just moving. We're talking smart financial planning, making tough decisions with confidence, and strategies to avoid being caught in crisis mode. Join us for real stories, expert insights, and actionable steps to stay ahead of the curve. Now, here's your host, Chris Spade.
And welcome back to another episode of Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast where we help Gen Xers navigate their life and help their aging parents as they go on to the next phase, whatever that next phase may be. My name is Chris Spade. I am your host, and I am here today with Paul Downey. This is someone I've been wanting to talk to. He works with a great friend of mine, but Paul is the CEO of Serving Seniors, where he is responsible for the oversight and overall management of all programs, services, housing operations, human resources, and IT. And over the past 28 years at Serving Seniors, Paul and the organization have expanded key programs and services for low-income and homeless older adults. Since being appointed to the role, Paul has guided the agency's innovative efforts to provide supportive services focused on keeping low-income seniors healthy and independent. Under Paul's leadership, Serving Seniors has grown to serve over, get this, 1.7 million nutritious meals 365 days a year, and led the development of the Homelessness Prevention Program, along with developing affordable senior housing. Paul, welcome to the show.
I'm delighted to be with you, Chris.
I'm so excited. So let's talk for a second about how you got into this space of working with seniors. What led you down this path?
Well, I went through an unorthodox path. I actually started in radio, and I worked with a mutual friend of ours, Gail Falkenthal, and I worked together in radio and did that for a number of years. And then morphed into the political world. I was the press secretary for a former mayor of San Diego, and in that role, our office started to volunteer at Serving Seniors. So the mayor had a particularly soft spot in her heart for seniors, and so we started going once a month to serve lunch. And that's how I was first introduced to the agency. I have to admit that the first time I went, I was not overly excited. I was all of 26 years old, and we're going to go do what? And I like to tell people I was smart enough not to say the words out loud, but I was sort of dragged. But within a few minutes of starting to serve lunch, I had a 180-degree swing in my perception because I started talking to people. And I tell folks I probably did a really lousy job of delivering the meals, but because I was talking to people, and I grew up in a middle class household. I went to college and understood poverty from an academic perspective, but this was my first time really talking to people who were struggling and living in poverty, and it had a profound impact on me. So I went from being sort of the reluctant guy volunteering to leading our group and getting us there. And we served every month for the mayor's almost 2 terms in office. And so once her term was ended, I didn't think about going to work at Serving Seniors. I actually went to work for the Workforce Partnership as the assistant CEO. And then a couple of years later, 1995, the job opened up at Serving Seniors, and I already had a commitment to the mission, loved the organization, and was ready for an opportunity to lead a group. And as I say, the rest is history. But sort of that very odd path, not the normal path into the nonprofit world.
That's awesome. I mean, every step we take leads us to a new place in life, and I think that's fantastic. So I want to start with the 1.7 million meals, because when I was talking to Gail, I mean, I knew through a roundabout way that you guys provided meals to seniors. And when she told me 1.7 million meals every day of the year, that
That's a
really
year
impressed
for the full year,
with
for the full year.
for the full year. That impressed me. Let's talk about that. Like that in and of itself is a huge feat.
Well, so Serving Senior, we were the first provider of senior meals in San Diego County, and that dates all the way back to our inception in 1970. But what happened to us is we were the largest provider of meals in San Diego on March 12th, 2020, which is a very infamous date, as we all know, when
Mhm.
things got shut down because of COVID. Well, we were doing 750,000 meals then. And what happened to us was with the pandemic, people started panicking. Seniors were told, stay home, don't go out. And so they're worried about how are they going to eat. So our phones exploded. We were getting hundreds of calls an hour from people wanting meals. And so we had, in the midst of the pandemic, when nobody knew what the heck was going on, how to keep safe with a potentially deadly virus, how do we ramp up our operations and more than double the number of meals that we were providing? And between March and May of 2020, we ramped up to serving 1.7 million annually.
Wow.
And because we were not in a position to say, well, we'll just shut down for a while, see how things go, because people depended on us for food. And so it put a lot of pressure on us. And, we went to, we have a really good emergency manual. I opened it to pee and, there was nothing there for pandemic. And so we were making it up as we were going along. Fortunately, for us, the San Diego community really stepped up. I mean, we had donors calling us saying, "What do you need? Here's a check. Get those meals out." And fortunately, the county stepped in as well and provided funding, so we were able to ramp up. And what happened was that the folks realized there's value to getting these meals for these seniors, whether they're even folks that are not really low income, but they're living by themselves, may not be inclined to cook for themselves, and so so suddenly we're getting two nutritious meals a day, that taste pretty good, and that's continued. And so the one good thing from COVID is that those meal numbers remain high, and in fact we're continue to grow. Each month we get more and more folks coming in. So at least something good came out of those horrendous 3 years that we all went through.
Yeah. And it's all over San Diego County, right?
We serve all over San Diego County. We have congregate meal sites or senior centers throughout sort of the metro area. We go as far as Oceanside with a site, but our meals are served in basically virtually every part of San Diego County. Most of them home delivered meals, and they get two meals a day. So it's really important towards keeping people healthy. I mean, that's our focus. I mean, we want obviously to fill bellies, but it's getting the nutrition, because there are numerous studies that will show that good nutritious meal is as valuable as taking medication or exercising in terms of keeping an older adult healthy. In fact, it's true for all of us. I mean, our mothers
Right.
were right. I mean, eating your vegetables, eating good nutritious food
It's good for
is
you.
is, is good for you. And the goal is to keep people healthy and then use the entree of meals to be able to provide additional support if needed. So if they need to have case manager assist with things, if there's not family in play to provide that support, because the goal is to keep people at home um, until they pass away. I mean, we don't want them to have to go to a higher level of care if we can possibly avoid it.
Excellent. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you is how does serving seniors work to identify and reach those seniors most at risk for food insecurity?
Well, we really target where we serve. I mean, so we are in neighborhoods, lower income neighborhoods, where we reach out. But we also get a lot of referrals. A lot of seniors who are receiving our meals tell their friends. But we've made a concerted or an informed decision to really concentrate our efforts on the lowest income. In fact, about 90% of our seniors are below the federal poverty level. So they're living on $1,200 a month or less, and often spending 75% of their income on rent for
Mm-hmm.
substandard SRO unit, single room occupancy unit, or apartment if they can find one under $1,000. And we see about 11,000 unduplicated people a year through our doors, but most of those we're seeing on a daily basis because they're receiving meals and services. So our goal is to step in and to be that safety net to ensure that they're able to stay at home.
Are you the only agency in San Diego that does it? Because it seems like I haven't, other than a food bank or something, where you don't necessarily get the food prepared. Is serving seniors the only one that actually prepares the food? Because I looked at the menus. The menus look really good. Like the breakfast and lunch menus look fabulous. That's some good food.
It's good food. There are others that provide some services that are out there. I mean, certainly Meals on Wheels is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Salvation Army provides some meals, but in terms of the robust services that come with the case management, health aspects, socialization, we provide the most robust services around the meals, and we are twice as large as the next largest provider of food. I mean, then there are some others. Mama's Kitchen is out there, and they provide meals for people who have long term serious illnesses of any age. And so there's some others out there that do really good work as well.
Is there anything, can you share any recent trends or data that highlight specifically the growing need for food assistance programs for seniors?
Yes, yes. I mean, what we're seeing is it's the basic economics. So grocery prices have gone up, and we know that inflation has been out there. Social Security has not kept pace with inflation, and seniors are often hit more so than other populations because they have higher expenses. I mean, things like medication that maybe in-home support that they need, and so they're hit hard. And when food goes up, that impacts them directly. So that's where we're seeing the continued increases because our meals are provided at no cost for the recipient. If they would want to make a donation, we will gladly accept it. But our goal is to ensure that they remain healthy by getting the food. And so the trends are that shrinking amount of dollars that people are bringing in on a monthly basis. I mentioned the $1,200. So, rents are $850, $900, and you're trying to live on $300, maybe $400 a month. Uh, you start breaking that out on a per day basis, it gets really hard to cover all of your other expenses and get something
Right.
nutritious to eat without some help.
Yeah, I have a friend who, part of the reason I started this whole podcast is because a friend of mine just started experiencing some difficulty and challenges, and she was telling me her rent right now is $2,200 a month, and she gets $2,000 a month in Social Security. And the social worker that we were working with that was referred to her, mentioned serving seniors, and she is has not taken up this opportunity, which I'm actually going to go see her after we're done here. So I'm going to go encourage her even more. But it just sounds like an amazing program that is just been so fantastic. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit because I want to talk about housing. And the one thing I noticed doing my research is serving seniors offers several housing options, and you have a new housing option coming up in early in what, like weeks, right?
Yes,
January
yes,
2025. Yeah.
yes.
So in City Heights, the Harris Family Senior Housing Development, how's that impacted the community? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that one is particularly exciting because we have 117 units of senior housing, but on the same site, we actually have 78 units of family housing. So that project was done in conjunction with Price Philanthropies, and it's a true intergenerational neighborhood community. Because in a regular neighborhood, you have younger people, older people, you have
Right.
a wide range. And historically, when you do housing, you put seniors over here, you put families over there, and when you do affordable housing, well, what we wanted to do was to create a real intergenerational community. And so we partnered with Price, and what we have there is the combined housing. Serving Seniors provides the services for everyone, including the families and the seniors. And then obviously we own and operate the senior housing component. But the idea is to get people to come out. We have barbecue area, we have a community garden, and we have areas where people can come together and to really interact with each other into a true community. And then we do events that pull the community surrounding neighborhood into the housing so that the seniors feel integrated, the families feel integrated into the broader community. And we're taking that same concept to the new project in Claremont. So we're opening the first phase, 79 units in January. We have a second phase that we're going to break ground on in December of next month. That'll go with it. But there's also over 200 family housing units that are on the site as well. And it's going to be the same model as City Heights, where Serving Seniors will provide services for the families and the seniors to create, again, that real sense of community with different joint activities, exercise programs, classes, barbecues, all of those things, which we really see as the future of affordable housing. Instead of putting people in boxes, we want to create true communities. And there's a lot of value that we see in intergenerational. A lot of families, grandma and grandpa live across the country somewhere, and they don't have an older adult in their life. A lot of the seniors are separated from family for the same reasons. And so there's a nice synergy of having older and younger folks interacting with each other in a real sense of community, but also support. I mean, they each provide the other with value. So we're really excited about that. And we're going to provide affordability for a lot of seniors and a lot of families that really need it.
Yeah, well, first of all, you answered about 6 of my questions on my list right here because I I was going to say, because so often what we see is um, families separated for whatever reason, and then mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whatever, will move into an assisted living facility in another part of the county, and then the family lives far away. And when you're talking about seniors who are low income, that generally follows a trend where the family itself is low income. So it's more difficult for them to come together as a family unit and even do things like spend holidays together or anything like that. So this is, I mean, you answered a lot of what I was going to ask you, because this just sounds like, it was very well thought out for the future.
That's what we really wanted to do, is we wanted to plan, because we're impacted. I mean, in this country, I mean, we are an aging country, and
Mm-hmm.
the estimates are by 2030. I mean, 6 years from now, almost 5 years from now, about 20% of the population is going to be over 65, and
Yep.
that number continues to go up over the
And it will
next 30 to
grow.
40 years. I mean, it isn't until mid-century that the numbers start to level off and eventually start to decline. So we have significant number of older adults, unfortunately, because of the economies, good and bad over the, last 30 or 40 years, it's basically baby boom generation. Some are very well situated financially and are able to look at enjoying their retirement. But a lot of folks have, lived paycheck to paycheck throughout their lives and are now, getting into the retirement age and are going to be struggling with how to make ends meet. And housing is going to be right at the top of the list. And so that's why we want to create as much affordable housing as possible for the growing population. And we know at Serving Seniors, I mean, we're going to be in the growth business for the next 3 to 4 decades in terms of
Well,
demand for services.
let me ask you this. How is this paid for? Is it paid for by grants? Is it through a program? How, if somebody wanted to get into, let's say the Claremont, the new one opening, what does that process look like? How does somebody apply for that?
Sure. So, well, this basically there you have to be low income. So that
Hmm.
means that it's tied to what is known as area median income or AMI. And so we have units that are at 60% of AMI all the way down to 40% of AMI. So, 60% unit is somebody making it can't make more than like 35 or $40,000 a year. Now, most of the people that we're dealing with make much less. So if you make that or less, you are eligible to put in an application for one of the apartments. And so what happens is the structure of financing affordable housing is that you layer multiple different funding sources together so that you have very small debt. So a very small mortgage to pay on the property so that your rents just need to cover your mortgage and operations for the building. So that means the rents are well below market. And so, in fact, most of the rents are probably less than they're about 35 to 40% of market. I mean, one bedrooms will be, I think, about 1,100. And I think median in San Diego is like 2,200 in that
Yeah.
vicinity. Two
Yep.
bedrooms are more than that. And so that allows for the affordability for folks. Um, it still is a lot of money for someone making 1,200. I mean, you're still the affordable housing is affordable primarily for maybe the economic level above poverty. The reason is that we don't have enough Section 8 vouchers, which is what we really need for low income folks to supplement their rent. But this housing provides affordability with support services to again the goal of keeping people there until they pass away. I mean that's the goal.
Excellent. Well, what role can the broader community play in supporting housing initiatives for senior and wellness programs? What can the community do?
Say yes to projects being proposed in their neighborhood. That gets into a sticky issue for some folks, but what we need in San Diego is high density along transit corridors. So where there's trolleys and bus lines, having high density apartment style or condo type housing. We believe it can be done in a way that doesn't impact single family neighborhoods because again, you're already on a corridor that has businesses and whatnot. So for Claremont, for instance, I mean, we're on Genesee. We're just off of Balboa and Genesee. So it's a great location. But so communities need to say yes. I mean, we go through it every time we do a housing, talking to the neighborhood and initially, people have concerns. We work through them. But at the end, we try to incorporate these buildings into the broader community as, as just one of the pillars of what's going on in that neighborhood. So I think having people understand that saying yes is going to help solve some of our overall problems. I think the other thing they can do is talk to elected officials and encourage elected officials to support building more affordable housing. Because, I mean, getting into the sort of the whole homelessness area, what we see is the primary reason we have, over 11,000 unsheltered people in San Diego is we don't have enough housing for them, affordable housing for them.
Correct.
I mean, homelessness is a lack of housing problem. And I've been working in this field for 40 years, way back when I was working in the mayor's office. And yes, there are folks who are mentally ill, who have drug and alcohol problems, but that's a small percentage. Most of the people that are out there, it's an economic issue, and particularly for seniors, it's an economic issue. That something bad has happened, loss of a job, illness is a big one, rents going up on a fixed income, and they end up out there and can't get back into housing. They don't have the mechanism to get back into housing. So the more affordable housing we provide, the more stable we're able to keep people, and there is a benefit to the overall community. And the same holds true for younger people as well that you see out there experiencing homelessness. It's the lack of ability to afford, a unit when you're looking at median price for a one bedroom of $2,200 a month.
Yeah,
that's
expensive.
That's expensive, and so
Yeah.
So that's why when you talk to these neighborhoods, I mean, people are upset and concerned about encampments and homelessness. Well, part of the solution is by providing more affordability. I think because when you look at, and I would also say we need to be building more middle income housing, more high end housing, because we have shortages all up and down the economic scale. So you don't have enough high-end housing. People who can afford high-end housing are now looking at middle-level housing, pushing middle-level housing down into cheaper housing, and the people at the bottom get pushed out altogether.
Yeah, because I also read your study on homelessness, and it's in that study that the needs assessment, it pointed out that the number of homeless older adults in San Diego is projected to triple over the next decade. So, I mean, that's just a scary statistic.
It's growing every year. So right now, according to the point in time count, the one that was done in January of this year, about a third of the people on our streets are now seniors. A third.
That's just bad.
And the statistics show that about 85% of them are there strictly for an economic reason, as opposed to severe mental illness or drug or alcohol issue.
Right.
It's an economic cause, and which leads us into one of the big things that we are doing is focusing on prevention. I've been involved in homelessness issues, again, for 40 years now. And we don't talk about stopping it from before it occurs. The focus of sort of the homelessness initiatives that we have in this country is once somebody ends up on the street, the continuum until hopefully they end up back in housing. But if we take it back and look at the prevention, it's the right thing to do. It's the human thing to do to prevent it. Because for an older adult, particularly, being on the street exacerbates existing physical health issues.
Health conditions, yeah.
And it also starts to cause mental health issues, like PTSD type issues. I mean, depression, anxiety, that sometimes they start self-medicating and you should get a downward spiral. So it's from a human standpoint, it's the right thing to do. But from an economic perspective, it is absolutely the right thing to do, because we are pushing, and we've got both the city and the county what we call shallow rental subsidy programs. And what
Okay.
these are is literally a monthly supplement that is paid directly to the landlord to reduce the rent that the person is paying out of pocket. So at the city, it's $250, $500, and $750. At the county, it's $500. Well, let's just take the $500, do the arithmetic. That's about $6,000 a year to prevent a very low income person on the cusp of homelessness from falling over the edge. The National Alliance to End Homelessness, which is based in Washington, D.C., and I've worked with them for a number of years. They're kind of the preeminent entity dealing with homelessness in the United States, estimates that it's about $50,000 a year for every individual experiencing homelessness. When you factor in police, fire, paramedic, emergency room, hospitalization, long-term care, criminal justice system, all of those things factored in, it's about $50,000. And so you prevent somebody from becoming homeless for six, or you spend 50 on them once they are out on the street. And for a senior, that doesn't even factor in the long-term impacts of not
Right.
having health issues like diabetes or something that's treatable, taken care of, and the costs associated with it. So this is a bipartisan issue. When we found this in our study, it was sort of the brick to the head of, wow, this is important information. So we took it to all of our elected officials, starting at the county, and Supervisor Joel Anderson, was more of one of the more conservative members of the board, loved the idea. He said this makes economic sense and it's the right thing. He reached across the aisle to Supervisor Lawson Reamer, one of the more liberal members of the board, and together we got this in place. And we're seeing this is, in this era we live in, actually a place where there's some bipartisan agreement on a human solution that turns out to be the fiscally correct thing to do. And so you have this wonderful dichotomy of, doing the right thing makes economic sense. And so
Right.
we want to see more of this. And also, and related to that is also just the one-time payments. So we see a lot of folks that get a month or two behind in rent. And so you get, if you're making $300 after you pay, you don't have a lot of ability to catch up if you get behind. And
Yeah.
so they
Even
are
one month is, yeah, even 1 month can take somebody out.
it takes them out. And so the choice is, what happens? Well, the landlord either agrees to, let them pay $10 a month or something, or they risk of eviction and ending up on the street. So coming in with one-time payments, and the county is doing this to pay back, say, 2 months rent or 3 months rent, and keep the person housed, is a much better economic solution than having them end up on the street. So it's this, when we look at this whole homelessness issue, it's the affordable housing on one end we need a whole lot more of, and then we need to be focusing on prevention on the other end. This is the only way we have to change the paradigm of what's happening in San Diego and across this country in the way we approach homelessness, because what we're doing at best is only partially working. Every month we see the number of unsheltered exceeds the number of sheltered, and that's just been going on for almost 3 years in San Diego.
Right.
So
Right.
we got to do something different. And now with a third of the folks being seniors, for those of us, working on aging issues, it makes it even more paramount that we take some action to change this paradigm.
Well, I just learned something new. I didn't know that this program existed and is an option for seniors out there. I mean, I think that's fantastic. See, every time I talk to somebody, I'm learning something new about something that's out there. And you just now taught me another phone call I get to make and say, hey, I learned this. And, I can pass this knowledge on. So thank you for that. That's awesome.
Well, you're welcome. Well, if there's people who need it, I mean, it's there, and what we need to do is we need to take it to a larger scale and have it be more accessible for more people. But we're seeing the impact of it in preventing homelessness. I mean, we have hard data that's showing this, relatively small investment is keeping people housed, which is where they want to be, where the community wants them to be. And so, if they're in the city of San Diego, they go through the Housing Commission. And if they're at the county of San Diego, they can go directly
To the
to
county.
the county to get access to it. And we're doing a lot, Serving Seniors is doing a lot of advocacy at the state level. And we're getting some traction where we're doing this, you know, basic arithmetic, showing them the math that doing the right thing happens to be the cheapest thing by
Yeah,
preventing the homelessness.
that's awesome. That is incredible. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you would like everyone to know?
Well, I mean, in the whole other area, and that older adults face, and I always like to talk about it, is ageism, and that is making folks aware of it. We find that most people in this country know that whether they adhere to this or not, they know that racism and sexism are bad. You shouldn't do.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean they don't, but you know that. But when you see
Right.
with ageism, people who are would be horrified if you said you are make that's racist or that's sexist, make comments about older adults that are ageist. They make a old guy joke. Um, they say something about age. I mean, you go to the Hallmark and you buy a birthday card. Anybody over 40, it's likely to be some sort of an age related joke. You watch TV, look at how older adults are
Are
often
portrayed.
portrayed.
Hmm.
Hard. You think Grandpa on The Simpsons is the best, but you see that variation. They're grumpy, crotchety, say
Right.
anything they want. They can't hear, and it's rare that you see an older adult portrayed in a positive light. And people,
See, I see an older adult with wisdom. I used to love. I mean, my grandma, she was tough as nails, but I mean, she was smart, really smart, and full of wisdom. I felt.
yeah, but and people, well-meaning people, do it. So, I mean, I think there's a lot to be learned, obviously, from older adults. I mean, I've learned a lot over the almost 30 years that I've been at Serving Seniors from folks. But I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. It was just maybe 6 months ago. I had breakfast with a friend. He and I met for breakfast on a Saturday morning. Hadn't seen him actually hadn't seen him since before COVID. So we sat down. Waitress brought over the menus. I ordered some coffee. I think he did too. And we're chatting, and as you do, catching up. We hadn't looked at the menus. She brought the coffee, said, "Were we ready to order?" And I said, "No, haven't looked." And you know, came back a few minutes later. We still hadn't. We were again chatting, and she, looks at me, and I said, "Oh yeah, I need to spend some time with the menu." And then she looked at me, and I've got some gray, and said, "Well, I can help read it to you if you need me to."
Oh my gosh,
And
she
not
said
not being
that to you.
sarcastic, not being sarcastic. I mean, I think she truly thought I was having trouble
Oh, seen
comprehending,
it.
seeing it, comprehending
Oh,
it. And so it wasn't
gotcha.
it wasn't meant as a, sarcastic
Or
comment.
anything mean. Yeah.
Mean. Her intent was to be helpful, and didn't realize that she had insulted me. And I bit off several of the more nasty remarks I might have. And I just simply said, no, fortunately, I learned how to read. So give me another minute and I will figure out what I want for breakfast. But those little sort of microaggressions
Right.
that occur for older adults. I mean, for me, that was, it was minor, but we see that a lot with folks where somebody says something not meaning to be mean but creates an
I
ageist comment.
Yeah, and I think I mean that would also kind of relate to somebody who is I have like I said, part of the reason I started doing this podcast and really kind of focusing on all this was my friend's wife ended up having dementia, and we helped facilitate putting her into a memory care facility. And one thing, as I knew she was kind of this was a growing issue, I the same story would get repeated over and over, or the same question, right? And I remember just sitting there early on, just happily answering it over and over and over again, because she didn't know, right? She didn't know that she had asked it just 2 minutes ago. So, yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, I can definitely see that. You know what? Thank you so much, Paul, for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I've learned so much from you and new stuff that I can pass along to some of my clients, and I can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening. I truly appreciate you being here, and we will catch you on the next one.